Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. Wow, EMPH is up $22. What? Insanely crazy. 23.80 after hours. What's going on, Izzy? Welcome in. Wait for some people to trickle in here. We'll get started. Izzy on. Hilarious. What's going on, Praveen? Probably another minute or so. Let everyone trickle in. Ukrainians are using Bitcoin to crowdfund Russian war, says blockchain analyst. What in the world? What's going on in this world? What's going on, Crystal? Welcome in. No, what you have for dinner, Izzy? Some chicken wings? Pizza? Lobster steak? I'm sure you're gonna tell me. All right, guys. I guess we'll get started here pretty briefly. So that way we can cover what needs to be covered. I'll get right into the watch list that I have tonight here, so we can get ready for tomorrow. Buffalo tacos. What? That sounds fire. Wow. I do like that. I gotta try that one day. All right, I'll get started here real quick for you guys. Looking at SPY, pretty much today's action was just beautiful. I was looking this morning. If we pretty much down in, pretty much a deep dive in today's price action, and just looking this morning's action, um, pretty much what I was noticing here was an inverted head and shoulders action. Also, it was a bigger, larger degree inverted head and shoulders that we're looking at. But as I zoom in just primarily to today's action this morning, I was pretty much looking at that inverted head and shoulders and Gaston's here for the moon mission. But you saw that little inverted head and shoulders that took place. We had a nice little dip right into open. That gave us our little head. Then we popped right back up about almost about 45 minutes or so after market open. And then we had that little pullback that formed our right shoulder. And we literally just went pretty much almost vertical for the next few hours there. I think going right into noon, we had that nice little vertical action. And so now if we zoom out to the 30-minute here, we get the bigger picture in which today's price action really was forming a larger degree inverted head and shoulders. All right. And that's primarily what I was watching. You had an opportunity to get a nice little scalp on the little drop off that we had later on in the day. I was pointing out the head and shoulders that I saw intraday, and that's what I was looking at. If I dial back in on the 5 minute here, you saw that little head and shoulders action that we had pretty much intraday, in which it was started right around 11 o'clock or so. You had the little left shoulder, you had the head, and the right shoulder that had that little drop off. And that was a beautiful little dip by opportunity for that little pop right into the close, which I believe Tom actually had a position. He was expecting the little pop into close. He wanted to see the squeeze, and that was just a beautiful pop right back up, in which we all knew that the market was pretty much overall bearish. There was nothing that was pretty much leading us to a bearish sentiment just yet. We do have the data, the CPI data that's going to be coming out on Friday, in which that's going to be indicating inflation. And so until then, it does feel like the market just wants to continue higher. And so if we do go higher off of this inverted head and shoulders action, we are looking at this massive little gap that we have here, in which that'll complete at 458.12. Of course, there's going to be some bumper stops along the way up to that 458. Some major numbers that I have that I want to see us break. Of course, first level will be 453.50, and then 456.06 would be those two major levels in which I'm watching along this gap fill. But those are the major levels. Of course, during live, we'll give you the walkthrough in which those minor levels are, and we'll be able to give you that step by step. My bad. Thursday is that CPI data. I don't know why I keep having a Friday in my head, but it is Thursday morning, so we will likely pretty much run steamroll right into that data on Thursday, and then we'll likely see what the market wants to do once that data comes out. All right. So again, inverted head and shoulders action on SPY here. We'll see the continuation right into the gap fill here. Gap fill will actually re-enter at 452.34, and then we'll get that gap fill right back into that level here, in which I mentioned was 456.87 is which will complete that gap fill. All right. As to my watch list here, which I'll get into now, a few names that pretty much caught my attention here after hours. One was actually Coin. I saw the little rebound that we had on Coin going into the close here today. So I wanted to take advantage of that and pretty much keep Coin on watch. We had the nice little wedge action. We had the little breakout. And so I do want to see it actually complete this gap fill. So that's what I'm going to be watching for. If we can get the move over 209, it will be 223, 209.87 is the level I'll be watching for. If we get the break over 209.87, then we'll be completing the gap fill here at 222.31. So that'll be one that I definitely keep my eyes on, especially if Bitcoin continues to rebound going into tomorrow. Then I will watch that one to see if there's any continuation. I know people don't like coin. A lot of you don't like Boeing. This is just one. It may present itself as a day trade opportunity. So I'll just keep it on watch here. But primarily is the gap fill is which we'll be watching. So again, over the 209.87 mark, then we'll see if it gets interesting. You'll see some resistance points right around 213.07 and then 217.41. All right. So I'll keep that one on watch. Another one that caught my attention was also snow. This one, if I dial it out to about the 1 hour, probably get a better picture on this one. In which you have a little bit of a descending channel type formation. I saw it break this little downtrend that we had. You have a nice little pennant action going on. So I do want to see it pretty much break through, see a nice little continuation off of it. Otherwise, you also do notice we had a little gap fill below also. So it will be more so of a directional play, which I'll be watching for. So if we get the continuation to the upside, then I'm targeting the move towards 216 here, 316 to the upside, in which that may end up also, if you notice, it may end up forming an inverted head and shoulders. So you have a left shoulder right here. If we gap right up to this 316 mark, that may end up solidifying a possible head, and maybe we get the drop off with the CPI data, and that will cause probably the right shoulder. So just pretty much very skeptical, but I'm pretty much targeting here. 316 is my primary target off of this pennant. If it breaks down, then of course we're going to be targeting the gap fill here below 290.39. We'll be targeting the gap fill below. All right. So I'll be watching that one. The other one that I'm keeping an eye on is also on MasterCard. MasterCard also has a nice little falling wedge. Sig, welcome in, Sig. So we have a nice little falling wedge action on MasterCard. I'll be keeping an eye on MasterCard with this little falling wedge action. We'll see a nice little gap fill potentially in the works. And so once we break over a level here, over 360.24, that'll be the high that I want to see us break over. Then I'll likely end up, I'll take that back. That's the wrong level I mentioned. Quick second. Note was a little mixed up here. Be watching that over 379.25 is the level that I'll be watching for. So we break 379.25. I'll be looking at it. First PT will be 384.12, and then next one will be 388.48. All right. So we'll be looking at that 388.48 right into that gap fill on Mastercard, in which I'll be paying attention to that one also. And then the one that never continues to stop dying as of late is that Facebook. I think everyone's been trying to catch the bottom on Facebook, and every time everyone tries to buy Facebook, it feels like it just continues to die. But it does have a beautiful little setup here off of this little falling wedge action. And why does it feel like my resistance point just moved? Yeah, it did. Drop that back down. So it is still in the wedge. It can continue to keep wedging. So I'm not pretty much too big on this one. Yeah, that MA chart, the MasterCard one just looks really clean off of the falling wedge. Although I gotta say, the falling wedge on Facebook looks also clean. I'm just not as convinced about Facebook breaking out as I am about MasterCard breaking out. That's the only issue I have with it. So the fact that Facebook actually has just continued to been dying, I think there's just a lot more weakness. I've been seeing darts thrown all over the place on Facebook. Some 215 puts have been out there. I saw calls stretching out even up towards about 240 on Facebook. So I'm not too convinced on it just yet. But my overall targets that I have are pretty much sitting 231, and then my second PT here would be right around the 236 mark. Those are my two primary targets that I'll be watching for if we do get the breakout. But of course, we do need to get over some levels here. We do need to get over 225.25 and then 230.32 before we see those two PTs that I pretty much said the primary ones. All right. So this one's kind of on, a little bit on the back burner. I had to see this one actually get some kind of strength, a little bit of momentum built onto it before I even dip my toes into it. Because pretty much my motto is that I do not want to be caught in a knife in which the knife just continues to get more bloody. All right. So this one will have to probably be on the back burner. I'll probably have to see a lot of strength out of the cues tomorrow, which I believe most of us anticipate with SPY and the inverted head and shoulders, gap fill above. But I'd have to see some strength overall in the rest of the cues before I probably watch Facebook. All right. Just some other ones that caught my attention was also Williams Sonoma. This one pretty much just caught my attention after hours, after the market closed. It had a nice little rounding bottom type action here. We see this little rounding cup action as well here, in which we have a nice little flat top resistance. So I'm going to be looking to see if we end up breaking out in this Williams Sonoma. I'm sure liquidity might also be another issue as well. So I'll have to pay attention to that come tomorrow morning. But if we do get a nice little continuation, we get a nice little breakout, see a move over about 166.30 I have, then we could possibly get into my target here of this move going towards 168.54. And that'll be a nice little quick day trade that I'll probably be looking at. So all in all, if tech does not look too strong for me, I think this will probably be the play where I fall back and look at maybe a MasterCard and a Williams Sonoma per se. So that's pretty much like my fallback if tech does not do so well as tomorrow. That'll be my two fallbacks so far outside of the tech moves that I have. Other one was MDB. MDB also has a nice little inverted head and shoulders action. And this one also does have a nice little gap fill as well. So pretty much just a textbook inverted head and shoulders. We'll be entering the gap fill here above 425.10, and then that gap fill will complete at 431.33. So I do like this one. I'll see a little bit of continuation out of this hopefully. We do have a little wick fill here also up towards 427. So we break that 427 and then again we'll complete the gap fill here 431.33. So I'll be watching MDB. This one may end up costing you. Hopefully for the fact that it's in the middle of the week, I think premiums may be a little slightly cheaper. But again, premiums might be a little bit costly on this one, so just be aware of that just ahead of time. And then just the last one I have was ServiceNow. Pretty much similar setup to MDB. Nice little inverted head and shoulders action and the gap fill above. Entering gap fill over 621 here, and that'll complete at 627.80. So I'll also be watching now. We'll see if we get the continuation. You see that it's pretty much flashing a breakout here off of this inverted head and shoulders. So I do want to see the continuation out of that. If we end up holding this base here, as long as we hold 587, then we'll likely see a continuation out of service now, and we'll get a nice little push out of that with the market likely trending tomorrow. So those are the names that are pretty much fell on my watch list. I think those are the best setups that I saw after the market close here. Of course, the Qs in general will be the biggest watch. You'll probably hear me say where the relative strength is, where the relative weakness is as well. I think today we pretty much saw that from Google, although Google did give a little pop from going red to green. Facebook, of course, was that weakness early on, and also with Netflix. I think today what really carried us was Microsoft and Apple. That was literally the backbone of the queues right here. That pretty much took us off. And also, can't forget Amazon because that was definitely a hell of a move. But that was also a little bit more so with the news that ended up happening. And that's literally what pretty much ignited a fire under it. And it just went bonkers. So again, we'll see where pretty much where that relative strength is. We'll see if it's going to be back to back with Microsoft and Apple. Otherwise, where's that strength in the queue is going to be coming from? All right. But I think that's pretty much simplified right now. What I'll be watching for. Again, all eyes on the inverted head and shoulders on SPY tomorrow. Futures are pretty much trending pretty well so far. And so we'll be watching for continuation. And all eyes will be continuing and filling the gap here on SPY as we lead right into CPI data on Thursday. All right. But I think that probably wraps up tonight's session, guys. But that'll be all. Thoughts on BA and Apple. As I look at BA, and I pretty much mentioned BA by the way to Avery into the close here. We were watching this one. It had a nice little wedge to say. We see it's flashing the breakout, but what's gonna be my trigger is likely if we end up holding this 214 mark. I want to see a push over the 214, and I want to see us build a base over that 214 mark. Now, if we end up gapping up by morning, then I'll have to reanalyze where I'm gonna go with Boeing, because I definitely don't want to just dip my toes into this one, because this one may end up hurting you in the fact that if the Qs are really going to be pushing, we may see Boeing pretty much fall off the map, in which is going to be one that lags. So I'm going to be very skeptic about it, but I am going to keep it on my radar tomorrow. I had a price target. I think I was watching it towards 222. It may not get as high as 222, honestly, just because of the fact that I think the show may be more so geared towards pumping up the Qs into the CPI data. So that's what I'm geared towards believing right now. I'll have to see if we get a nice little gap up on Boeing, and then I'll reanalyze it by tomorrow morning to really give you a better picture. So if anything, and I've told everyone before this, I mean, if anything, pretty much tag me in premium chat, and I'll be able to give you pretty much my walkthrough. My levels are once we get the gap up, or we see where it's pretty much sitting at pre-market. All right. As far as Apple, I think Apple's sitting pretty nicely. Someone said Tesla. I'm always on Tesla. I mean, I think I pretty much show that most of the time, and I'll probably be watching it tomorrow. But if we get continuation on Apple, I think Apple's really gonna have to break this mark here. It's gonna have to break out this recent high, 176.22. As of right now, 175 seems to be some heavy resistance. If we don't break this 176.23 mark, then it's likely going to end up being a fader. But if we break that 176.23 mark, then we're likely going to see this push towards 180 pretty easily. And so again, over 176, we're looking at 180. If we can't even get past this 175 mark by market open tomorrow, it's likely going to end up being a fader. All right. So we'll see how that one does. I would expect more continuation out of Apple too, more so than Microsoft. Microsoft had a nice push, but I just don't think that it has enough strength to go back to back days. So we may see Apple with a little bit more strength as we try to push towards that 180 mark. I would say. All right. It shows a head and shoulders. Let me see off of the daily. It said a head and shoulders on the daily. Let's see this head and shoulders that you're talking about. See a little left shoulder here, the head, and then the right shoulder, which we dropped off already. I mean, I think it kind of invalidated that head and shoulders that you're talking about, honestly. So, I mean, again, line in the sand is that 175, 176 mark. If we can't break over 175, then it'll be that fader. I mean, your head and shoulders that you're probably looking at will likely end up being playing out. I know that we also had Microsoft and Apple also on the newsletter and spy puts. So keep that in mind, and that's why the levels were pretty much indicated on the newsletter as well. So if anything, also fall back to the newsletter. I know that Avery put the levels on there. So fall back to that to see what levels he had and what he had playing out. That might end up giving you a better picture on Apple, to be honest with you. But I know that pretty much the last time I heard Avery talk about Apple as well, I think he owned the same sentiment as me. Is pretty much if it breaks over 176 here, we're likely going to end up seeing 180. But 175 and some change was pretty much heavy resistance right now. All right. Someone said to look at Tesla. I'm just gonna take a peep at it real quick, but I don't think there's anything much that I'm really looking at, to be honest with you. Let me see real quick. Oh, an inverted head and shoulders. Okay, DK, that makes more sense now. I thought you were saying a head and shoulders. All right, okay, that makes better sense now. All right, yeah, I saw that inverted head and shoulders. I mean, the right shoulder's a little weak though. I gotta say that. That's why I pretty much didn't want to point that out because that's a very weak right shoulder. So that's why I kind of just left that be and just pretty much going by level, just to give you that update. But yeah, I do see that what you were talking about. Makes more sense now. I thought you said a head and shoulders, not an inverse head and shoulders. My bad, DK. All right. Looking at Tesla, let me see. Probably the 1 hour gives me a better picture. I already had two levels that I was pretty much looking at. I know that I wanted to see a break over 937, 938. That was the big mark that I wanted to see Tesla break over. If we can get that break, then I'm targeting here 966 will be that level that I'm targeting. Over the 966, then I'm pretty much looking at 995 will be the next mark that I'm watching. Otherwise, if we can't get over this 924 level, if we can't break over 924, it's likely going to end up being a fader. And maybe the rest of the Qs end up taking the weight as we continue to push higher. But I'll probably be giving an update on that one tomorrow morning. I know that I'll be watching it. I'm sure Avery will probably be watching that as well. It's usually a daily on the watch list. So we'll keep that one on watch. We'll probably give a walkthrough on that one come tomorrow morning right at the opening bell. So stay tuned for that one. We'll see how it opens up. I think the gap up will likely be a bigger story if we get the gap up, or if we end up opening flat or not. That'll probably be a bigger indication or not. All right. But other than that, I think that pretty much concludes tonight's watch list, guys. So I'll see you guys on live tomorrow morning. We'll give you the pretty much the rundown, and hopefully we have a nice little trending day tomorrow as we push towards that gap fill that we are all anticipating. All right. Other than that, I will see you guys tomorrow morning. You guys all have a great night. Okay.